You've got 17 unread emails. Your rent went up. Again. Your boss wants a report by Monday. And somewhere between your third cup of coffee and your fourth scroll through bad news, a tiny voice in your head goes, "I can't do this anymore." Sound familiar? Now here's something nobody talks about. Ancient human daily life was built around prehistoric survival instincts so sharp, so wired into the nervous system that just existing was a full-time job. Life before civilization meant real threats, not metaphors. Wolves, famine, a stranger on the hill who might not be friendly. So here's the question nobody really asks. How did they turn off the alarm system in their heads? Without therapy, without medication, without a single podcast telling them to breathe. That's exactly what we're going to find out. Here's the version of the past most people carry around in their heads. Stone Age humans were basically running for their lives every single day. One long, unbroken nightmare of predators and starvation. But that's not quite right. Anthropologists make a crucial distinction between two very different kinds of stress. The first is acute stress, the kind you feel when something dangerous is actually happening right now. Heart rate spikes, pupils dilate. You run or you fight. It's fast, it's fierce, and then it's over. The second kind is chronic stress, the slow, grinding, low-level dread that modern life has turned into an art form. The unpaid invoice you can't stop thinking about at 3 a.m. The performance review that's been hanging over you for 6 weeks. What life was really like for early humans, and this is where it gets genuinely surprising, was largely free of that second kind. Think about it. Stone Age humans didn't have a mortgage. They didn't have a boss. Anthropologist Marshall Salins famously called hunter-gatherers the original affluent society, not because they had everything, but because their wants were few and their free time was, by some accounts, surprisingly generous. Studies of modern hunter-gatherer groups suggest around 4 to 5 hours of work per day was enough to meet basic needs. The stress they faced was episodic. Intense, yes, but then it ended, and the moment it ended, they had something we've almost completely lost: permission to just stop. So how did ancient humans deal with fear when it did arrive, when the hunt went wrong, when the winter came early, when someone in the group didn't come back? They made things. Blombos Cave in South Africa contains some of the oldest known examples of symbolic human thought. Ochre engravings, shell beads, abstract patterns scratched into stone, dating back roughly 75,000 years. This wasn't decoration. Researchers believe this kind of paleolithic art was a way of externalizing internal chaos, of making the invisible visible, of saying, "I was here, I felt this, and I survived it." And then there's sound. In the caves of southern Germany, archaeologists found something extraordinary. A bone flute carved from a vulture's wing, over 40,000 years old. Someone sat down, probably after a long, difficult day, and made music, not because they had to, because something in them needed to. What's remarkable is that modern neuroscience backs this up completely. Rhythm and repetitive sound activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the biological off switch for the stress response. These ancient people weren't stumbling into this by accident. They were, without knowing the terminology, hacking their own nervous systems. Pattern recognition, imagination, creative output. These weren't luxuries to hunter-gatherers. They were survival tools of a different kind. Now picture this. The hunt is done. The fire is lit. And what does the ancient community and tribe do? They talk. They tell stories about what happened today, who did what, who said what, whose fault it was that the deer got away. What sounds like simple gossip is, in evolutionary terms, one of the most sophisticated social technologies our species ever developed. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar, the same researcher behind Dunbar's number, has argued that social gossip was the original engine of language evolution. Before abstract philosophy, before written law, before literature, humans were talking about each other, and that talking served a biological purpose. It lowered cortisol. Studies on both modern humans and other primates show that social bonding, through touch, through shared laughter, through storytelling, directly reduces stress hormones in the bloodstream. The campfire circle wasn't just comfortable, it was pharmaceutical. In hunter-gatherer life, isolation was genuinely dangerous. Being cut off from the group meant death, so the brain evolved to reward social connection and punish its absence. The loneliness that so many people feel today, in crowded cities surrounded by more humans than our ancestors ever saw, isn't weakness. It's a nervous system designed for a world that no longer exists. The third antidote is the one people find hardest to take seriously today: ritual. Ancient rituals and ceremonies weren't simply primitive religion. They were, in the language we'd use now, structured collective experiences designed to process shared anxiety. A community that had just survived a harsh winter, a failed hunt, or the death of a member didn't just carry on. They gathered, they moved together, they chanted, painted their bodies, danced until exhaustion. And in doing so, they transferred private fear into a shared container. The forgotten history of everyday people is full of these moments. Not battles, not kings, just groups of humans sitting with the weight of being alive and finding, together, a way to put it down. Modern psychology has a name for what these rituals were doing: collective effervescence, a term coined by sociologist Emil Durkheim. The temporary dissolution of the boundary between self and group. The feeling that you are not alone in what you are carrying. You can find echoes of it today. At concerts, at funerals, at sporting events, in any room where strangers cry together, or laugh together, or stand in silence together, the form changes. The need never has. Here's a thought I can't stop coming back to. We doom scroll. We stare at the little glowing rectangle in our hands for hours, letting it fill every quiet moment with noise. Ancient humans, in their own way, may have done something surprisingly similar. Sitting in front of a flickering cave wall, watching shapes move in the firelight, their minds wandering somewhere between imagination and dream. Different screen, same restless brain. And speaking of restless brains, here's an honest question for you. If you were dropped into the ancient world 50,000 years ago, which would genuinely stress you out more? Tracking a woolly mammoth across a frozen plain with nothing but a handmade spear, or your current boss sending a message on a Sunday afternoon asking for a quick update? I want your honest answer in the comments, because I have a feeling it says something about human nature that neither of us fully wants to admit. Here's the real tragedy of where we've landed. Our prehistoric survival instincts were built for a world of short, sharp threats. See danger, respond, recover, repeat. That system kept our species alive for hundreds of thousands of years. It is, without exaggeration, the reason you exist. But modern life never sends the all-clear signal. The threat is always abstract, always future tense, always just out of reach. And so the alarm keeps running. A system designed for a sprint, forced into a marathon it was never built to finish. What ancient humans understood, not intellectually, but through lived practice, is that recovery is not optional. Art, community, ritual, rest. These weren't soft extras. They were the maintenance work that kept the machine running. If this look into the forgotten history of everyday people, the ones who never made it into textbooks, the ones who sat around fires and made music and told stories about their day. If this helped you see your own stress a little differently today, then consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. It helps us keep digging, because the more we understand where we came from, the better equipped we are to figure out where and who we want to be. Stay curious. We'll see you in the past.